Well, I have 10:01. I know that we'll probably have a lot of people joining us as we move on, but let's go ahead and get started because we do have a full agenda, and I want to have save time for COVID updates and especially where we at in regard to eviction and some of the other activities that we will do. So with that being said, usually we do introductions at the very beginning, but I'm going to hold that off to the end just because we have people kind of coming on, and then people can also kind of provide updates in regard to the program or agency specific initiatives that they may have. Um, so why don't we just go ahead and dive on into the committee updates. The committees have been very busy in regard to moving forward the strategic goals, burning up the Zoom accounts as I can see, which is great. So Laura, you want to talk about data and performance, one of our newest committees?
My cell phone.
Sure. Well, we got going on our data committee finally. It was good. Everyone on the committee was kind enough to kind of go through a back end of the HMIS world. And then we talked about future, looking at data quality and really improving the ability to get the data from the system out to all the constituents and CoC to understand and utilize better.
Great. And I know that you have a number of initiatives going on with HMIS, and we go to adding new partners in addition to dashboard. You want to just kind of briefly give an update and go to HMIS? Well,
sure. Yeah. I was talking to Robin at Watts this morning and working with Michelle Smeltzer at Front Royal to get them in HMIS. And there's been some talk with the Salvation Army in Winchester. And of course, Vicky's been awesome and helping me talk to other people in that area because she told me she found it a really valuable tool. So that's really great. And we've got that going on. We have this really cool new dashboard where it's a pilot project throughout Virginia. There's I think just our CoC and maybe just a couple more that are getting started with it. And what we're doing is taking the data from our HMIS and beaming it to a spot, a warehouse, through a service called OpenPath. And that'll allow us to do once we have it kind of worked out, we're still getting some bugs and so on cleaned up, but we'll be able to look at our data better, and I'll be able to send reports out to all the agencies so you can really see your data and you can see how many people you served and kind of get an ebb and flow of all of the people coming in and out of your project, and just a lot of other deeper thing too. We'll be able to, for me, troubleshoot data to get it cleaner and better looking and better operations. So those are all good things.
it's pretty exciting. A lot of work, but very exciting in regard to some of the new initiatives of HMIS.
Mm-hmm.
And we do appreciate all the new partners joining HMIS. One of the things that we are graded on is our level of participation. And in the past, we've struggled in regard to be able to achieve the target goal. But with the increased participation in the northern area, especially through the shelters, that's going to hopefully carry us over the top and get us to be eligible for additional funding. Which is great
Michael,
news.
I met with Robin with the thermal shelter up here actually just this morning. We just finished a meeting before we jumped on here. So I'm actually going to kind of assist them in getting everything going with HMIS and kind of supporting Laura in that and making sure that they're on board and helping problem solve and getting their data entered.
Excellent.
Also, I forgot to mention, I've been working on the website. When we had some transition a while ago, we kind of got one up and running, but kind of started over to make something more ADA compatible, better for compliance with ADA regulations, if you will. So it's basically out of the box the way that it was created. So there's no fancy stuff to break on it. It's very simple, but it's sturdy. And I think that's good for us. But I'm also working on the HMIS user page, which comes into play where this is, Vicki. So there's new agency paperwork. There's the templates for gathering your data and all of that on that page now. So
That'll be great.
I was checking out the new website today, pulling down the agenda. So everyone check it out and give us feedback in regard to how the format is. What Laura's talking about is a critical issue though in regard to ADA compliance. It's been kind of a legal topic that we've been having discussion in the industry for over a year now in regard to making sure that your website is compliant. So thank you, Laura.
thank you.
Compliance and evaluation.
I'm here.
Okay.
Just trying to unmute myself. Sorry about that, Michael.
No problem.
Well, we've been working very hard on trying to come up to establish and execute a process for our grant applications. It was evident over the last year that we need to get some kind of process in place for all the interested parties to apply for grants. So we've been having long work sessions to try to get that in place by December 31st, the 1st of January. So we had a meeting, of course, in August, and then another one in September. And what we've come up with so far is some threshold requirements for all grantees that are interested in applying through the application process. And we're still working on performance scorecards and benchmarks and things like that. But all of this has to be introduced to the executive committee, which we will do in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully we'll have all of this in order to present to the full CoC by January the 1st. I was on vacation at the September meeting, so I just want to ask Lisa if there's anything else that I didn't mention that she wanted to add. Lisa, you with us?
Here, Sheila. No, I think you said everything. We're very happy with our threshold requirements because one of the things we want to make sure is that we're very transparent in the next grant process. So by getting those out a year in advance, everyone will know what needs to be in place and will give you an opportunity of several months to work on meeting those threshold requirements before we actually have the announcement of the grant.
Any questions for Sheila, Lisa? It's a lot of heavy lifting here in regard to this initiative, but it's part of our strategic goal to expand and make sure that all processes are transparent and open.
Do we have any indication as to when the NOFA might be released?
I asked, I was in a HUD call 2 weeks ago and asked that question, and they said, stay tuned, which means that they don't know.
Okay.
And so we, it's really past the deadline. And I anticipate that probably they're going to just do a process this year of just reaffirming the current grant funding at its current level and not doing a new NOFA.
Wow.
I'll be surprised if they do a new NOFA this year at this time frame.
Okay.
In reality, we've had to submit the grant by this time to be able to have it processed by the end of the year. So, any other questions or for Sheila or the compliance evaluation? Centralized intake, Shannon?
And by the way, Katie, if you need to jump in at any point, please do. Wanted to just kind of give everybody the upside or the insight in the fact that our centralized intake staff is doing a fantastic job keeping up with the pace. We've seen an increase in activity in the second half of the summer. They also have to sort through the fact that we have calls that would be appropriate for the COVID response lines for the RMRP program, meaning the rental and mortgage assistance programs that are being operated in our region. So they have to sort through not only the calls that we're normally receiving, but also making sure that those are getting directed to that other hotline, and they're doing a great job with it. We're working on some workflow issues. Laura has brought up some data requirements that HUD is trying to put in place that are going to change some of the workflow and make things a little bit more difficult for our staff. But we're doing our best to accommodate those and try to eventually move forward and get some processes put in place. Katie, is there anything you'd like to add?
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. No, I think that's a good synopsis of what we've been doing. The majority of our focus now is just keeping on track of the calls and figuring out how to keep up with the new workflow with HMIS.
Any questions for centralized intake? It sounds like the numbers are increasing slightly, or about the same due to, or maybe more due to the rent and mortgage relief program. Is that correct from your comments?
Yeah, we've tried to keep the messaging clean on those two lines and try to differentiate them as much as possible. But obviously, with the general public, sometimes it's difficult for them to sort out the difference. So a lot of times, the centralized intake staff have to ask a few questions even before they start the normal process of doing an intake, just to make sure that this is not someone who's got a COVID-related circumstance that would be better served on the other line. Just as an aside, the RMRP program that Mercy House has been overseeing has already distributed over $225,000 in assistance. We've served over 100 clients, and we've got about another 40 current cases in process and more coming every single day. We've been able to secure some funding from the city of Harrisonburg that will be focused on Harrisonburg city clients, and then we will continue to use DHCD focused funds on Rockingham County clients going forward through the remainder of the year. We anticipate that there will be more funding behind this, but right now the program, at least on the DHCD side, is supposed to end on December 15th.
Yeah, the governor released yesterday 15 million more, I believe, for the program. So hopefully some additional funding will be able to come through, which will probably be needed, no doubt. Best Practices Committee. I didn't see Lynn on the call.
This is Miranda from First Step on that committee. We did meet briefly in September. We talked mostly about some training topics that we want to be able to bring to the CoC. And then I believe we're supposed to meet again next week. So.
Thank you, Miranda. I appreciate that. Executive Committee. Anyone want to speak from the Executive Committee?
You're already unmuted, Michael. Go ahead.
I was going to give an opportunity for someone else, you know. We have been meeting on a regular basis, kind of planning out in regard to our future schedule, the agenda for this meeting, and looking at training topics that we need to bring into the CoC. One of the big issues is kind of facilitating these additional funds that we have received, whether it's Skills Act funds or CFEP funds from the DHCD, which are kind of flow through funds from the federal government. And so you never realize how much more work it is when you get more money to have to distribute out. But it's a good problem to have, I think, for our executive committee, that we have to come up with processes to equally distribute out and address the need throughout the CoC. Any other executive committee members want to add something? Any questions for the executive committee? Okay, we wanted to kind of, this meeting kind of give a focus in regard to COVID update, what are some of the programs going on, how are things going within those programs. We also know that as we come up into this winter time, we want to be able to also kind of identify where needs and gaps are, so we can be able to prepare as much as possible. Kind of as part of our environmental scan needs assessment, we thought it would be good to kind of do a update in regard to where we're at. First off, we wanted to kind of talk about hotel motel vouchers. Sheila, Oscar, Shannon.
Well, Oscar was able to move most of the households that he had in hotels due to COVID out in the 1st of July, August, 1st of July. He had one, Oscar, you help me if I don't report this correctly, because the hotel people that I have in the region are, because of fire, they got help from Red Cross first and were putting them into permanent housing very soon. But I believe Oscar had one case in September that was COVID-19 positive, and we put that client in a motel for 2 weeks. But I believe that's the only COVID-19 we've had. Is that correct, Oscar?
Yes, in September. Now we have a couple that we just housed last week, I believe, and then we have another one that came up at the end of last week. So we're waiting on results.
Okay.
Can you?
So
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask Oscar. Were those referred from organizations or the hospital, or how did you get those voucher requests?
The one client was a referral from Valley Assistance Network. They were able to kind of jump in when we couldn't to help her stay over the weekend. And then on that following Monday, we were able to step in and take care of, the 2 weeks. And that was a referral from Valley Assistance Network. And then we had one, she was already on our caseload for rapid rehousing. She was staying at the Salvation Army, and we got a call from the health department, and then the client also called me. So just kind of working together. We're also working with the hospital in actually having a process in identifying individuals who are testing positive through the hospital and are also homeless. So we're kind of just putting resources together so that we can address these clients when they have to quarantine themselves, put in, food, clothing, all their needs that need to be met while staying at a hotel.
Great. Thank you.
In the Harrisonburg area, our motel program has been pretty extensive. We just are going to be putting in our 50th case tomorrow. We've expended over $200,000 in funds for motel since the beginning of the pandemic. So it's been a pretty substantial program. I'm very pleased to report that between ourselves and with the assistance of our community place staff who've been working with us doing direct case management in the motels and our rapid rehousing program, and also with the help of some vouchers from HRHA, we've been able to rehouse 23 of the most chronically homeless folks in our area. Not all of them are on the book by name list, but they certainly all have fallen into that motel circumstance and had enough vulnerabilities to qualify for the program. We are keeping back a small portion of our funding because we are going to be the backup for the cases that are going to be going to the open door shelter that might be presumptive and would be isolated by the city. And in some cases, if they're not fully recovered, they would go into our program once they have tested negative. So we're going to retain some funds throughout the winter. We certainly believe that we have not seen the worst of this circumstance as it relates to COVID, and we want to make sure that we have the ability to safeguard our thermal shelter to the degree that we can keep people out of there that should not be in that location. We still have about 9 clients in the motel, and they're the most difficult to house. Several of them have disabilities. We have one person that we have very little documentation on that we're having some difficulty placing. So we're going to continue to work on those cases. But all in all, I'm very proud of what the motel program did over the summer.
Great. Any questions about the hotel motel? It's work in progress. It's a high intensity program with regard to staff time and resources. And it's, again, it's really focused on the medical vulnerable for the COVID focus.
Shannon, I have a quick question. Where did the funding from the motel that program that you're talking about come from? Was that any from your localities?
At the earliest stages of the process, we started out with using Mercy House funding and then also funding from our community foundation in concert with the United Way in our area. So that was about the first $30,000 or $40,000 that we used. And then we were able to get the DHCD funding that was emergency COVID money specifically for the motel programs, and that was about $170,000, give or take. All of that money is gone. It's been expended. So now we've got some additional CHIRP funds that have come in that we're going to use through the remainder of the year, which was an additional allocation of about $30,000. So if we get the type of volume that we got at the beginning of the pandemic, we're going to have a hard time meeting that demand. And we will do our very best as an agency to try to raise funding through various channels, including going back to DHCD if necessary. But right now, we're going to try to play it as it comes.
If I could add to that, Michael, before we move on to Jennifer's question, most of the funding for the northern region of the CoC is from VHSP, and we were fortunate enough to get some of that extra money. So we have about 23,000 left that we anticipate, just like Shannon, that, you know, when the thermal shelters start opening and everything, that there'll probably be another rush. We want to make sure we have funding there for people that test positive or need to be quarantined. In addition to that, I've also applied for a grant through our county for CARES Act money that we could use for that as well. And over the last 6 months, we've been getting money from our local community foundation to help with COVID-19 cases as well. We've used that money mostly for rental assistance because of people that needed help with rent but didn't have eviction notices or anything else that DHCD requires. So we've spent $20,000 already in just rental assistance for COVID-19 cases. So just like Shannon, I think we're all scrambling to supplement that with community money so we make sure that we have enough, because flu season's coming and our shelters are opening back up. So.
All right, I'm going to send you an email, and Shannon, possibly if we can connect offline. I have some questions, possibly some solutions.
Okay.
And we will, I do want to recognize the City of Harrisonburg because they have been providing some funding to also supplement the hotel motel program. They've kind of taken somewhat of a lead role in regard to coordination in regard to working with the shelters. So it's been a pretty positive partnership with them. Thank you all for that. Shannon, you talked a little bit about the rent mortgage program. I see Andrea from People Inc. too. I don't know, Andrea, put you on the spot a little bit, but maybe you can give an update from the northern region in regard to the rent mortgage program.
Yes, well, we've exhausted quite a bit of money on the programs. We've spent actually close to $1 million.
Wow.
On rent assistance. And so we have a small bucket left, but what I have heard this week is that there will be more funding coming down the pike, specifically for Northern Shenandoah and Winchester area.
Great. It's good to hear that there's more monies. It's sad to hear that there's such a big demand.
Yeah.
Has the pace has it increased? Has the pace been steady or just?
No, I think it's still been steady.
Okay. Shannon, anything else you want to add in regard to the rent mortgage program?
Just that we're very fortunate to have had these resources. I shudder to think what this would have looked like if all these cases had hit the eviction docket. They've given us the flexibility to be able to intervene early in this process. And again, the biggest barrier we've had is just getting the landlords to move along with us to get stuff done. That's been the bigger issue, is just tracking down the paperwork and getting the landlords to do their part. Again, for those of you that are on the line and may not be aware of the program, you can refer people. Each of our agencies have a hotline number that can be contacted for an intake. And really, if anybody can prove that they've had income loss due to COVID-19, and that could be in the form of layoff or a lost job or a cut in hours, or they've lost childcare and can no longer work, they have to document it. But if they have that, it's most likely that if they could qualify for some assistance to be able to be in a position to get help if they've fallen behind on their rent. There's some income requirements and some other things as well, but it really refer them and then we'll sort it out from there. And I don't know if that's the same for Andrea, but I think that that's just the easiest way to present it to people that might be referring.
Yeah, they should call that the 1-833 number that's on our flyer. I know I sent it to Isaiah a few weeks ago when we updated it. Call that number and they will help them determine eligibility. And if they've been, even if they've been helped already, they can apply multiple times. That's another thing.
The number for Harrisonburg and Rockingham County is 540-216-2350.
And we'll make sure that Isaiah sends out that information to everyone on the line, so we can resend that out.
Isaiah, we've got a flyer as well. I can send you if you don't already have it.
Great.
Got a question about the new angle that they've got where landlords can apply directly to Virginia Housing for assistance. Do y'all have a preference about whether we should be sending landlords there or tenants here?
Our preference would be that the tenant apply, just because that the real piece that's going to trigger their eligibility is on the tenant side, not the landlord side. I will tell you that I think landlords that have gotten assistance from this program have been very proactive at getting other tenants to us. So once a landlord sees how well the program works, we've been able to get a lot of landlords that are pretty actively sending several tenants to us. But the missing component is still going to be the tenant. The landlord cannot come directly to us for relief, at least not through this program. They need the tenant for eligibility. John, the program you're talking about is through Virginia Housing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know if they need the tenant requirement for that. They just need to have them sign a waiver, just stating that they are unable to pay the rent and move it forward. So we've shared that through Virginia Housing information to all of our landlords, and tried to post on our website. It's just a different. They found that they've had challenges with the landlords being able to connect with the tenants to be able to do that. So they've tried this reverse route. So hopefully that will be able to capture some additional people. Great. Vicky, and I don't know who else is on from the Congress shelters. I don't know if Joel's on from Open Doors, but you want to give an update in regard to what y'all doing up in Winchester?
Sure. So we've been having a lot of meetings lately. We are working really hard. As you guys don't know, there is no day shelter or 365 shelter in Winchester. We're pushing really hard to open and working really hard to try to solve that gap. I know, we're applying for some funding to try to close that gap. We're partnering really well, both with CCAP and Watts, to start some kind of streamlining, closing some gaps for these chronically homeless that many of us work with that like to jump facilities. We have had an incredible influx in the last, I would say since Monday, we've had 22 phone calls for people needing beds. And these are individuals that are, some are domestic violence that are coming out, calls from hospitals. We're getting calls increasingly from Warrington, Fairfax. They don't have beds, so they're trying to send them here. We're at capacity every night. We've actually converted 3 offices now into bedroom space because we have 4 residents right now that have terminal cancer issues. So figuring out what those next steps are for them. Regarding COVID, we continue to be blessed that we've been shielded from that so far. Across the country, they're not finding it's affecting the homeless population as we expected it to be. Our director, Brandon, has been charged by the hospital. He's been trained. He is the designated individual now to test the chronically homeless for COVID. They needed somebody to step up, and that's what we do. So he is the designated rep to be able to actually perform COVID testing. Hasn't had to do it yet, but we know it's coming. So both our men's and women's shelter are full. We do have our transitional housing now. That program's going really well. We've been able to, I think, 8 people in the last month, we got them into permanent housing, which was great because these were long-term residents with serious mental health medical issues. We've got 2 or 3 now pretty active with centralized intake to get them moved on. We've gotten a couple that need to go to assisted living. One's moving to an assisted living next week. So what our challenge now is we're finding our population's becoming much older. We're having increasing, so with that comes increasing medical conditions and finding them a permanent stable environment, whether it's in assisted living, nursing home facilities. So that's kind of where we're now running into. We have a resident with clear dementia, and how do we get him into an assisted living facility and there? But you know, we're going after, you know, those kind of fundings, but our big focus right now is closing this gap in services that's up here. And I know, Michael, you're aware of us working pretty hard on getting that done. So.
Yep. Yeah, I've been very impressed with the partnership that y'all have had in regard to working and even bringing in city government to be able to help support and at least identify different options that y'all can be able to do. So yeah. It's been one of the benefits of COVID, I guess, has been bringing additional partners to the table. And it's been very exciting to have y'all be part of the process and working with y'all.
Yeah, and so we'll hopefully we'll get Robin on this call next month with Watts. And like I said, we're meeting pretty regularly so that we can get them on, because, you know, now we've closed the gap and we have a really clear picture of our chronically homeless up here.
Great. And I don't see anyone from Open Doors or from the Front Royal Shelter. I didn't see Michelle or Joel on. I know that Michelle's been working really hard to get the Front Royal Shelter open, the Congregate Shelter open up there. And they are targeted, I think, November as their start date. And then Open Doors, I don't see anyone from Open Doors. Joel, the executive director, we reported yesterday that they just opened up this week at Brethren Woods, which was exciting to hear. He said the numbers the very first day was 7, then 14, and then and he was concerned that what the next stage numbers were going to be. So he was concerned about that double an increase. But hopefully maybe we can get an update from them on this next call. But it's glad to see that the shelters are able to start getting open. Are there any questions for Vicki in regard to her shelter and what they're doing at Rescue Mission? Jennifer, you want to give us an update in regard to Valley Assistance Network? Y'all been super busy and doing a great job. So.
Thank you, Michael. So it's very similar to what Shannon mentioned is happening down in Harrisonburg area. So City of Winchester and Frederick County governments gave us collectively $700,000 in CARES funding for rent and utility assistance. So we've been doing the program for 3 weeks, and we've served 43 families to help prevent the evictions with rental and mortgage assistance, and 58 families with utility assistance saved from disconnect. So we've only spent about $85,000. Again, we have $700,000. So we're just starting to, there was an article in the paper today, we're just starting to actually promote it more. We wanted to make sure that we could be efficient and be able to take on, you know, this massive increase in folks reaching out. So we think we've maintained it pretty well. We are trying to encourage people to go to our website, if possible, to fill out all the information, and there's a checklist and all that stuff. Frederick County Social Services is helping to do Frederick County applications. And then our office is helping if people do need to come in person, they don't have access to print the materials or need us to copy stuff. We are operating in person. And so the folks at People Inc. Were incredibly helpful with helping us launch this. And basically what we're doing is if somebody is over the threshold that the government has our localities have allotted, then we're sending them to People Inc. If they're under, then we're serving them. So this is all online, but the Frederick County set their threshold at a max of $750 for utilities and $1,500 for rent or mortgage. And the city of Winchester is higher at $2,000 for utilities and $3,000 for rent and mortgage. So we're kind of looking at it where depending on what the client owes, if they owe $4,000, then we're saying, hey, go to People Inc. If they owe $2,000, then all right, great, continue this process. People cannot get funding from both sources for the same time period. So we are working again with People Inc. to cross-reference and make sure that nobody's double dipping. We are still, doing our normal connecting clients with resources, but obviously our main focus right now is the CARES funding. I have worked with FISH in Clark County, and they're going to be getting money from the Clark County government to do the exact same process. So if you know of people, if they're asking about that in Clark County, it's very similar, and it's working relatively well. We're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish in a short period of time. One other thing while I have the mic is we had Michael and I are on and Oscar too, are on the Northern Shenandoah Valley Housing Coalition Steering Committee. And we had a meeting yesterday and decided that we want to focus our next housing roundtable on shelter services. So that is scheduled for, I think it's November 15th. Let me double check. November 7th. November 7th from 9:30 to 10:30. I'll be emailing all the shelter providers to ask to participate in that. What we want to, and then we're going to open it up to the community. And so we think it's going to be regional. So we want to include everybody down to Harrisonburg, but really just have an opportunity for people in the community to be empowered and know what the resources are. If, they know somebody that needs shelter, also to have open and honest conversations if everybody's at capacity, so we think we've had a really good success. We've had like 50 people sign up for our previous roundtables with really doing little and no publicity. So we think this is a great topic for November that we can really engage the community, and then hopefully then it'll also save everybody else time and energy from trying to figure out who's open, who has beds at the current moment, what's the process, we can just get it all out there at once. So stay tuned for that. And Isaiah, perhaps I'll ask you to send that out once we have the Zoom link, and I'll open it up to everyone in the CoC.
And Jennifer, you also have a presentation coming up the end of this month too, right? You have you have Pam Kessner from DHCD at your large meeting.
That is right, we do. So the Housing Coalition, if you guys aren't familiar with it, it launched about 2 years ago probably, and we had a summit planned in March that of course got canceled. So now we're doing a bunch of virtual things, and we have small groups, and then we have a large group meeting. So yes, the large group meeting, I don't have the date on it right now, but I will make sure that Isaiah has it, including the invite and everything to send it out. But yeah, we're just doing a host of speakers to, help educate people. And then if anybody has really awesome information that they want to share, then please let us know. We'd be glad to spotlight you.
It's a great opportunity too. I've been able to participate in one of the roundtable sessions, and a lot of good information was shared. Functional information, how to access services, how, who's eligible for services, information that agencies can use. So we'll definitely make sure that we can communicate those dates. And I just want to applaud the network for their efforts in regard to all this. They've done a great job. It's an honor to kind of introduce our next two speakers, John Whitfield and Elizabeth Coltrane from Blue Ridge Legal Services. They've been kind of dealing with a lot of the eviction issues, and so without further ado, I'll let both of them kind of take the lead now and go to talking about evictions and some of the challenges we will face in our community.
All right, I'll be happy to start off with that. For those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, we're the legal aid society that covers the Shenandoah Valley, providing free lawyers in civil cases for low-income people. And we have an office in Harrisonburg and one in Winchester, as well as Lexington and Roanoke. So evictions have always been a big part of our work. And so when the pandemic hit and the recession hit, we were preparing for a tsunami of evictions, because we've seen evictions increase every time there's an economic downturn. Fortunately, in large part because of the great work that the rest of y'all are doing, that tsunami hasn't materialized to the extent that we had feared yet. And also, there's been a number of different tools that we've been using to keep evictions sort of tapped down. It's kind of a confusing patchwork of moratoria and temporary protections, both on state and federal level. Back in April, the Virginia General Assembly enacted some protections, including a 60-day continuance, a right to request a 60-day continuance if the tenant's income has been adversely affected. At the same time, the court shut down for a couple of months, essentially, so that certainly kept the lid on the evictions. And then the Federal CARES Act moratorium gave us some help for a couple months. That expired in July. But then we had a couple of moratorium issued by the Virginia Supreme Court on evictions. And that carried us through pretty much through the end of the summer. Right when that was running out, the CDC issued their moratorium. Now, and that's what's currently in place, and that's where we're getting most of our protection from evictions now with the CDC order. But that in particular is not automatic. It's not comprehensive. So we've been doing some litigation regarding it and how it applies in the courts across the valley over the last couple of weeks, and we expect to see a lot more of it coming up. It is not automatic. The tenant has to assert protection under it, has to prepare the declaration, has to give it to the landlord, ultimately has to make sure the court's aware of it or the sheriff's aware of it. And then judges are totally confused by this new order because it's, something from out in left field. And it's not the clearest thing the way it's written. And so we're in the middle of some litigation right now in Harrisonburg over whether it should apply to a particular eviction, how it should be applied, and what the court should be doing with it. In addition to that, the Virginia General Assembly is currently working on two different versions of a statewide moratorium. The House has a version, the Senate has a version. They both included it in their budgets, and now those competing budgets have gone to a budget conference committee, and so they're in the process of hammering out their differences, so that we hope within the next week or so we'll have a new tool to use in a continuing statewide moratorium for those affected by the pandemic and evictions. It's not going to be comprehensive. It's not going to cover all evictions, but it'll be something that'll be useful for many of our clients. As a result of all this patchwork of protections, and they're on again, off again, here and there, it's really important if you have a client facing eviction, please refer them to us. We're free. This is a priority for us. Our attorneys are probably the experts on all of these laws in the Valley right now. So we can help. We want to help. We will give these top priority, but the people have to be contacting us. The sooner the better. So many tenants are contacting us way too late in the game for us to do any bit of good for them. If they can contact us early on, that's when we have the most, the strongest position to take advantage of the various tools that might be available to them, and work them to their advantage. So please, please, please don't think, oh, well, this is just an eviction, we'll do something. Yeah, please hook them up with us. We'll work with your agency. We'll include your agency in the loop. We'll do everything to make sure that we can accommodate your perspective on how this should go. But it's so important for us to be involved early on to make sure that this client doesn't end up backed into a corner and they don't have any options left. Let me share my screen for a second to show you how many evictions are currently pending in our courts. Let me see if I can find this. Hang on just a second. There we go. This is a chart. Hope you can see this. Chart of pending evictions in Northern Shenandoah Valley over the next 7 or 8 weeks. This is a little out of date. It's about 2 weeks old, so, but it's the most current information we have. There are a total of 271 evictions currently pending in the courts in our area. You can see 4 in Clark County, 25 in Frederick, 138 in Harrisonburg, Rockingham. That's certainly the biggest number. 13 in Page, 18 in Shenandoah, 48 in Winchester, and 25 in Warren County, a total of 271. And this number has spiked over the last few weeks, and we expect that we'll continue to see that number spiking as we progress into the winter. With tenants no longer having that extra unemployment money, and with landlords no longer encumbered by some of the previous moratorium, we expect to see this increase, and we're going to be heavily relying on the work that the rest of y'all do to get that rental assistance working. And we really want to work closely with you to make that happen and to make that as convenient and efficient for your agencies as it is for our clients and our involvement with the courts.
Okay.
So I told Lizzie I would give that information. Then if they had any questions, I would let her answer them, because she is our full-time evictions lawyer. So she's got way too much experience in handling these cases over the last few months.
Questions for John and Elizabeth?
John, I just want to say that Jennifer and Elaine up in Winchester are phenomenal partners, and we love being able to call on them. So,
God, just add a sort of a curiosity. There's been a federal lawsuit filed to challenge the legitimacy of the CDC order, and it's been filed by a public interest group, a conservative public interest group, and their first client, their plaintiff to file the lawsuit was a landlord in Winchester against a tenant in Winchester who is a joint client of ours. Now they have added other parties, so it's no longer just focused on these two Winchester folks. But anyway, that's a small claim to fame. Hopefully
Are
that
you able to
litigation
reveal
will
who that
drag,
landlord is?
huh?
Are you able to reveal who that landlord is?
If I recall correctly, it's Rick Brown.
Oh, of course. And he's like trying to get so much money from us. Oh my goodness. By the way, I sent them to People Inc. because they owe like 6,000. But ugh.
So, yeah, it looks like he's received rental assistance. And so that the factual allegations that he's made in this federal lawsuit aren't really true. But since then, they've added other plaintiffs, so his role is no longer quite as important as it was initially. And we think, the Federal Department of Justice is defending this. Probably by the time they litigate it and it gets appealed, the moratorium will expire before it actually gets knocked out. Plus, we'll have the state moratorium kicking in hopefully in the next week or two.
Do you all have any thoughts or reasons why there's almost double the number of evictions in the Harrisburg-Rockingham area? Even if you combine the Winchester or Frederick numbers together, it's only half the numbers of the Harrisburg-Rockingham area. Is it just because of the landlords, or is it because of, I'm just curious if y'all have any, is it property management companies, or is it?
I don't have a theory.
Okay. Interesting.
John, you said that the statewide eviction moratorium could happen soon.
Yes.
Will that be, you might have already said it and I just didn't catch on, but will that be the same thing that we had in place, several months ago, and it would halt it? No? What would it be?
Well, it's hard to say because the House has one version, the Senate has another version. They're going to put them together, mix them up, slice and dice them, and come out with something else probably in a week. It may not cover every landlord. It may not be totally comprehensive. So we'll just have to find out what it looks like when it's finally settled. So I can't tell you. We don't know yet. They don't know yet.
So Elizabeth, is there any advice you can give us in regard to when's the best time? I know as soon as possible to link tenants to you in regard to legal aid for services. But is there a critical time that is helpful for people to know? That was most beneficial, or any suggestions that you have or recommendations?
I would say as soon as they get any kind of written notice from the landlord.
Okay.
About either non-payment of rent or 30-day notice or lease violation, anything like that.
Not a 2130, but a 30-day termination notice. Or either one.
30, yeah, either one.
Okay.
So Mike, I have a question for John. When thinking about assessing the numbers for the Harrisonburg-Rockingham area, my question is, are all 138 who are facing eviction due to failure to or non-payment of rent or for other reasons?
Well, they're for all the reasons. There's no way of us really knowing how that breaks down. This is all just sort of scraped off the court's website. So we don't know the reasons.
And could some of these cases be college students?
They could be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is a little bit off of evictions, but it's an issue that we face a lot now, and it's because of the new fair housing law with source of funding, where we run into landlords now with, not accepting whether it's housing choice vouchers or rapid rehousing funds or any alternative source of funds supports. We recognize it's a new law that's came out. We've tried to meet with landlords and do orientation and trainings. But I know that several people on the call have had challenges in regard to dealing with property owners, and we don't want to go right into a litigation process, but we also want to support the law. So any recommendations either of you have in regard to addressing that?
Certainly send those clients to us. Let us evaluate them. One interesting twist with the new sources of income law that makes it a fair housing complaint is that with the new rental and mortgage relief program, now that it pays 100% of the back due rent, if the tenants qualify, if the landlord refuses that payment, arguably they've just created a fair housing violation, or at least that's what we're prepared to argue.
Wow.
And that suddenly changes the complexion of the litigation. Can I very quickly, speaking of fair housing, mention a case that was just settled by the Department of Justice in Harrisonburg? There was a landlord who's been the scourge of our clients for decades in Harrisonburg, who's a sexual predator and a slumlord. And we've heard stories over the years. We've actually tried to file some administrative complaints with HUD and just nothing came of them. But we hooked them up with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division a couple of years ago. And they have just settled a major lawsuit with that landlord, Gary Price. It's in the paper, it's public knowledge. And he's going to be paying $335,000 in damages to any aggrieved victims of his conduct. So if you have any clients who have been victimized by Gary Price, they have like 60 days to contact the Department of Justice and participate in this settlement. And of course, we'll be happy to help coordinate that if necessary. But it's wonderful to see justice done.
John, that is great news, and I read it with a lot of interest, and we have been keeping him on our radar to avoid him. Is he the property manager or the owner? And also, what's going to happen in the future? Is DOJ going to keep an eye on him or what?
Well, he originally was the owner of properties, but for various reasons, he's put it in his girlfriend's name or his mother's name or different names. It's been a shell game, but all of them are defendants in this lawsuit. They're all captured by this lawsuit and by this consent decree. And he personally is prohibited from having any dealings as a landlord property manager henceforth. So if you run into him acting as a property manager, please let us know, let the Department of Justice know, because he's not supposed to be doing that anymore.
Other questions for John?
Yeah, John, first of all, that's wonderful news. We've had Gary banned off our list for a long time. But I wanted to ask you a question, and I've thought about this, and I'm not sure if it's a fair housing issue or not, but the management companies in Harrisonburg that are charging or requiring people to have 3 times the rent and income, is that a fair housing violation, or is that just simply setting a housing standard for tenant selection?
I'm not sure. I have to think about it more. My initial thought is probably not a source of income issue. It's just discriminating against lower income people, which I think is permissible.
And if that individual has a voucher, that's still acceptable?
Now that's an interesting point. If they can guarantee payment with a voucher, then I think that could become a fair housing case. Yeah. If you have a tenant, a client with that circumstance, send them to us.
We probably will have several for you, John.
Okay.
This is This was discussed with the Virginia Association of Apartment Management Association, and they are very strong political lobbyist group. And we had a meeting with them through all state lobbyist group, VACADO, Virginia Association of Housing Community Development Officials. And we discussed this. This is those stance, and they kind of negotiated out that position with Delegate Bourne when the bill was passed, where they felt like it kind of skirted around the fair housing issue. We've tried to think about, other ways that we can kind of skirt around it, that, hey, that can we show that we have funding available for that 3 months of, if they are housing choice voucher participant, we have funding reserves to cover for the 3 months for the complete rent, including the tenants portion, but we have not gotten anywhere with that type of strategy yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You only had success, Michael, with talking with Rocktown Realty here in Harrisonburg, that they are willing to assess that particular problem, that 3 times the rent problem, based on the 30%. But other property management companies weren't so keen on the idea, and we're going to kind of circle the wagons and rethink that possibility, just based on that, throwing the blame on equal application of the law. But at least Rocktown had agreed here in Harrisonburg to calculate it based on the 30% of that person's income, so it actually makes it a more viable option for a voucher holder. Others, well, jury's still out.
Yeah,
That was
it
our
would make
position, but that wasn't acceptable from the state level.
It would make sense if they based it on 30% of the income compared to their share of the rent, not the total rent, right?
Yep, exactly.
John, could we have Elizabeth's phone number, direct line, or yours, so when as cases come up, we can refer directly?
They need to go through our intake system, and
Okay.
plus Lizzie's in Harrisonburg, and so the Winchester office will be covering most of Shenandoah County, and we are in the process of hiring another eviction attorney for the Winchester area.
Okay.
So that'll just a matter of time before we have that position in place. But we're certainly doing eviction work now, but we'll have more resources very soon.
Thank you.
And those additional resources, John, is that the funding that was from the General Assembly to address eviction prevention, to be able to support? Do you anticipate more funding too from that?
Yeah, position in Winchester is coming from the state funding. We're also planning to add one down here, and that's coming from local CARES money.
Cool. Legal aid beefing up. It's good to hear. I'm glad it was the HOHA that was on that newspaper article too. Other questions for Elizabeth and John? Good information. Well, thank you all. Very appreciative, very comprehensive. It's great to have you guys in our community and supporting our work, and it's a great partnership. Within the agenda, there was a proposed schedule for 2021. Jeezy peasy. It's hard to believe, 2021. Isaiah, I don't know if you have that on your screen and we can just show it. This is a draft schedule that we proposed. It's very similar to last year, in which the number of meetings and locations. Tentatively, we did have it set up so that we'll be meeting in location, but as you know, due to COVID, this is all subject to change at this time. But just wanted to show the proposed times and dates. We'll be, if we are able to meet in person, I'm sure that we'll probably also have a hybrid type of option too for people. But I anticipate we probably won't meet in person for majority of next year, but we'll see. who knows in regard to what's going on. But I also want to highlight also the business items where we want to be able to talk about prepare for the point in time count in January. We'll go into a discussion from what Sheila was talking about in regard to best practices about grantees eligibility in February, data performance, safe space, and then we want to get some input in regard to some other training topics, mental health, substance abuse, racial equality, self-care for providers. That's not the only list. I don't know whether there were other training topics that CoC members are interested in. I'll stop right now and open up to hear from anyone's comments in regard to either the schedule or training topics.
Have we heard anything more on the updated version of the VSPDAT?
I have not. I have no specific time frame in regard to when that will be finalized.
Levi, it's Laura. So I have not followed through on that. Things have been in such a just really unusual time right now.
Sure.
But I will throw an email out today.
From the question, Levi, I'm assuming that that could be a possible training topic.
Yeah, definitely training and thinking about that, just to include specifically, I see safe space LGBTQ already on here, and that VSPDAT would include more data to capture that as a population within homelessness.
Any other thoughts or recommendations we go to the schedule or training topics? With that being said, do I have a motion to approve the calendar with the recognition that the in-person meetings may not occur, but at least the dates will be the same? We can save the date.
I make the motion, Michael, that we go with the schedule that has been presented to the CoC with the knowledge that in-person meetings may or may not take place due to COVID-19.
Thank you, Katie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Levi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, thank you. Got some work done. Just wanted to, we've made good time and very impressed with everything in regard to it. As you saw on the agenda, there are some other topic items, but if y'all, again, have any other suggestions in regard to training, in addition to the revised VSPDAT, let us know, and then we can be able to coordinate. I know best practices is looking for some guidance in regard to what they can schedule to be able to support agencies. So why don't we go through some agency updates at this time? Who wants to start? Or do you want me to call on people? Nikki?
I just have a very little update. We, in August, received a $20,000 grant from the Centera RMH Hospital Foundation to provide hotel vouchers and peer support to people who are being discharged from the hospital and who are homeless, to give them a safe place to recover from whatever ailment that they were hospitalized for. So far, in 6 weeks, we have had 6 referrals into the program, all for the full 4 weeks that we're able to do a hotel voucher for. So we can do 1 to 4 weeks. We're only able to accept people who receive a referral directly from the Centera case management team, either the medical or the behavioral health case management or social work team. So far, it's been a really big need. One of the key things we've heard is just the relief from the social workers and case managers of knowing that they have somewhere to send someone to after discharge who they know would not otherwise recover very well living out on the streets, or even with shelter, being out on the streets during the day when they're not able to be in the shelter. So based on the initial success, we've had some really, strong outcomes of people just doing a lot better. Who would have thought? Recovering in a hotel versus, out on the wall. They've actually been helping us submit an application to expand the pilot program with support from the Centera Corporate Foundation. They have an Office of Corporate Social Responsibility that they're helping us see if we can't get some additional funds to expand from the initial pilot of 10 individuals to maybe 40 individuals through the rest of the year. So it's been really awesome. And all those people we're serving through our other programs. So all of the money is going exclusively to the hotel vouchers and some initial supplies to help them when they're in the hotel, like food and clothes and toiletries. So it's been really great. It's been a whirlwind for my staff though.
Great news. Thank you, Nikki. Who else would like to share?
It's not COVID related, I should say that. So we're not trying to duplicate any hotel vouchers that are available for people who are at risk or positive for COVID.
Thank you. Andrea?
Yes, in addition to the updated RMRP flyer that I'm going to resend to Isaiah, and I'm also going to send information about our community needs assessment that we're starting this month. So that you all can share that information widely. And at the end of the survey, you will have an opportunity to win one of 3 $100 gift cards to Walmart. But I just wanted to ask that, Isaiah, that you share that widely, and you also, everyone on the call, share it so that we can ensure that we're getting the information we need about the needs of clients in those service areas that we cover. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other agency updates?
Levi here with the Harrisonburg Rockingham CSB's PSH program, where we launched in July. We have our first person successfully housed, and we're taking a pause on intaking any new referrals because we have 6 people that we're trying to now house and actively working through that. And that's quite a struggle at the moment. That 3 times the rent requirement has presented quite a barrier for these individuals. We were prepared for the felonies and all sorts of known landmines, as I call them, but we're now trying to come right back around to the landlords that we've already talked with and continue to build those relationships and hopefully get these folks housed before December, because our referral list is long and we'd like to make some moves to get to 30 rather quickly. So it's exciting to get your first one and look forward to more.
Thank you, Levi.
I'll go next. It's Oscar at ARE. Just with agency-wise, just trying to shuffle some staff around to help us organize a little bit more on our efforts to provide services through the CHIRP funding. So we have Mandy, which was doing centralized housing intake, will be moving into doing rapid rehousing through the CHIRP funding. And then we have Cheryl, which is still going to do street outreach. She's also going to be doing centralized housing intake. We have a fundraiser going on right now to help us, help individuals get into housing as well. So there's several things that you can do, whether you can donate a certain amount, up to a certain amount. I think it's 150. You get a free package that's worth like $900 through a photography person that we have partner with. So I can share that with the CoC later on. And then we also had received funding for utility assistance through United Way to provide utility assistance to those affected by COVID. So I think that's about it. Anything else that I'm missing, Katie?
No, that's about it. Thanks, Oscar.
Any other agency wants to show any updates?
Yeah, I'd like to, Michael. We have upcoming our annual Empty Bowl Soup Supper. It'll be virtual this year. Right now online, you can go in and purchase your hand made pottery bowl. It'll come gift wrapped this year instead of you being able to pick it out at the event. And inside the gift wrap box, you'll be provided with soup recipes. So it really is an empty bowl this year. Also, we'll be having our silent auction online, and that starts November the 6th, but you can purchase your bowls now. We're not shipping bowls, so we, because of the cost, but you can have a friend pick them up for you or do whatever. We've already sold some the first day online. It's been pretty positive, the response to our virtual fundraiser that we have each year. This annual fundraiser really helps us out with our budget and our revenue, so we really couldn't do without it. So we're really surprised of how fortunate we are that people have just kind of gone with the virtual thing, and hopefully we'll be able to sell out of tickets. I wanted to, when Nikki was sharing, I wanted to say we had a bunch of book bags that were donated that we've given to outreach, and since then we've gotten some more material. So, if outreach on the northern or southern region needs any assistance with snacks or toiletries or anything as they're going out in the field, please reach out to us to see what we have available, and we're happy to share that. So we have limited space, so the more that we can move the stuff out, that would be great.
Thanks, Sheila. That's great news.
Nikki, we've also got a fair amount of socks and toiletries if you need to supplement from us as well. We've got some really nice donations here lately.
Thank you so much.
There was a position that Sheila sent me that I'll be sending out today. I don't know, Sheila, if you want to say anything about it.
He's going to be posting through the CoC a job position that we have. It's a housing assistant that we're hoping that the person applying for the job will want to grow into becoming in advance to becoming a certified housing counselor. So most of you know that I'll be retiring in less than a year, and Katie will be taking over as the executive director. So we need to replace Katie as the housing counselor. So we're opening that up to anyone within the CoC or anyone that you all want to send the job position to. So we hope to put it on Indeed probably by the end of next week, but we wanted to get it out to the CoC first.
Thanks, Sheila.
Can you say what's involved in that job and the kind of person you're looking for?
Well, the housing assistant would report directly to the housing counselor, and that person would do preliminary calls, would work, of course, with fair housing, all of our 5 housing programs, all the eligibility requirements and all of that, and then hopefully want to go on to be trained to be a certified housing counselor. We're starting out the job between 27 and 32 hours a week, and hoping as they grow into the job and want to become certified that it'll be a full-time position. So you know, they have to be really good personal skills and phone skills. You know, right now with COVID, of course, we're not meeting that many people in person. So we're doing DocuSign. I mean, you'll see it's a whole list of requirements or people or what we're looking for. As most of you know that work with the clients that we do, it takes a special person to be able to handle the stress and the amount of request and demand that happens every day. Because you have some clients that need, you know, 100% of your help and some that are 50-50. So Katie, would you like to add to that? I hope Katie's here. Katie Furnison.
Sheila, what's your agency again?
Shenandoah Alliance for Shelter. They would work out of the Woodstock office. Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything to add at this point. I think you gave a good summary of the position, minus you have to have grant knowledge for the programs that we administer.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the job.
Yeah, you have to be familiar with the eligibility requirements for grants.
Avery, I don't know if you want to speak up. I saw that you gave a comment in the chat box in regard to the Phoenix project. Basically, Avery stated that the Phoenix project, which serves Front Royal, Warren County, they've seen a uptick in hotline calls and lethal assessment protocol calls. They haven't had a significant change in regard to survivors seeking shelter, but they expect that will change once the weather gets colder. One of the things that she talks about is also that they are participating in a 2-year learning collaborative with the focus being on examining layers of oppressive white privilege, systematic racism, and making sure survivors from underserved populations are receiving all available services. So thanks for that update, Avery. Is there another agency that wants to provide an update this time?
Hey, Michael, it's Candy. I just want to remind everybody that we're in October, and as I do every October, I remind everybody that it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I know First Up, as well as the Phoenix Project and Choices and Response and the Laurel Center all have different activities. Of course, for the First Up, we've had to change some of what we have done in the past because of COVID, and so everything that we're doing is going to be virtual this year. I have some staff working on some virtual events that are going to start. They're going to be every Friday for the rest of the month, starting this Friday. We will have some of our community partners who have supported First Step do some social media pieces on our social media talking about their work with First Step. I also want to just say that in June, we actually, First Step celebrated our 40th year of being incorporated. We were incorporated in 1980. We had planned, originally we had planned some celebrations and some things, but really not a year to be able to do that. We were really lucky. WHSV, the local ABC affiliate, did some advertising, got some local businesses to sponsor some advertising, and they did some, it's been running on during some of the news programs, just little clips about what First Step is and talking about our 40th anniversary. So we're really excited about that. That was really unexpected for us. So we were really tickled with that. And we're just we're staying steady. We're staying busy with shelter requests. Just trying to work our way through the normal issues and barriers that are faced by survivors of domestic violence, as well as the new challenges and barriers that is created by the pandemic, the financial crisis, the health crisis, all of that, and the trying to help our families who are trying to address the trauma, the safety issues, and then of course the financial issues, virtual school, all of that. So I know that we're facing what a lot of other programs are facing, and I just want to say thank you to everybody on this call, all the work that you do, because I can't imagine what our communities, our valley would be like if we didn't have these programs and we didn't have the really dedicated staff that we have to move forward and do the work that needs to be done to help those who are most in need. And I really, really appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you, and make sure you're taking care of yourselves. That's all I'm going to say.
With that being said, I think we need to end the meeting because I don't think anyone else can say anything else other than that. And just reinforce the need to take care of yourself, and thanks to everyone for the great work they're doing. One last call. Is there any other agency updates?
You know me, Michael, I can't just let it, finish out on that. I wanted to share the fact that we're very proud of the fact that we just acquired a building in Timberville. Our agency is of the opinion that we just helping people while they're homeless and giving them a temporary respite is not enough. We're having to get involved in affordable housing. So we have acquired a building that has a retail space in it. We'll be putting a thrift store in, which will help the commerce in the city of the town of Timberville. We did close our boutique here in Harrisonburg just due to the fact that the students and the business outlook was not looking great with it. So we're going to pivot and move our business out to Timberville, which expands our reach into Rockingham County a little bit further. But with that building also comes 6 apartments. They're 2- and 3-bedroom units, and they're large 2- and 3-bedroom units. And we are going to cap the affordability on those rents and provide private subsidies for future tenants that qualify for our program. So we really feel like that at a certain point, if we don't start taking efforts to secure market rate housing or do things to try to be able to provide affordable housing options, it may be too late. We've tried to acquire property in the city of Harrisonburg, and we're finding it's just simply too expensive for us to do so. So we went out into the county, and we certainly are a organization that serves a regional focus, and we're just really grateful that we got that opportunity. So I think that's a good thing, and we would certainly be looking for referrals when we do have units available for tenants that would meet our requirements in terms of income. So we're very happy about that.
That is great. Good news. Any other agency updates? Well, thank you all again. Much appreciation for all the good work you're doing. Our communities are very blessed to have each and every one of y'all working to support our community members. Be safe, have a great day, and look forward to seeing y'all soon. Thank you all.
Really quickly, can the executive committee members hang on the line?
Yep.
Thank you.